Invite Dr. Mayani back up again to give his presentation on the Virginia's ADS Consortium for Thorium Utilization. Dr. Mayani.
So it looks like actually I'm standing in your way for lunch. I think it's already too late. So I will try to make it quick. So as I was explaining, this Virginia ADS Consortium on thorium utilization is a kind of a workshops we have been doing since 2010. And first workshop was held at Virginia Tech, and second one here actually in the auditorium next door in 2011. And we had the last one in 2014 October in Richmond, Virginia at Virginia Commonwealth University. So that's the background. I always like to look at the past history a little bit so we can actually learn a lot from the history. So from that point of view, I would like to all of us to take a look at what happened on August 8th of 1953, where USA President Dwight Eisenhower announced Atoms for Peace. So I think it's high time that we go back and see how we can resurrect this program. And Homi Bhabha at that time announced the three-stage nuclear energy program, and we have heard a lot about it. So in the context of what needs to be done, I think we need to take a look back what needs to be happening. Anyway, so Oak Ridge has started this MSRE in October 1964, that everyone knows. Anyway, I want to look at ADS worldwide projects, but Dr. Revol has covered some of that already. So this is the UN General Assembly, August 8, 1953. President Eisenhower announced this. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened really to help the humanity. I think it's our responsibility to make sure somehow this will be resurrected and implemented as soon as possible so that we can prevent this pollution and carbon dioxide, global warming, and all those things. This is the only way that can be done. And of course, India played a major role at that time, and Homi Bhabha here was the first president elected to host the first conference on the Atoms for Peace in Geneva, and he was the unanimously elected chairman of this group. So it's interesting to note. Some background information is India was very active at that time because of, I believe, Homi Bhabha was spearheading that. And India built the first experimental research reactor in August 56. And first nuclear reactor that came online, commercial one, in the United States in 1957, which is the shipping port. And India has also built, as you have seen, the first commercial Tarapur reactor in October 69. And if we had kept pace with this type of stuff happening, we wouldn't be where we are right now. I think that's what I want us to take a look. Well, everyone talked about it. This is clear. And this is what I want people to pay attention to. I mean, China has built power so fast, and they have become, they are producers for the world, mainly because they built all these coal-based power plants. And you know the effects of that. They realized what needs to be done, and as you can see, they are ramping up nuclear. So they are going to be the leaders in this if they continue this path. And look at the rest of the world, major powers. Oops, sorry. US was the world leader, and of course, we have cheap gas coming, and there is no more interest in nuclear. It's very clear to everyone. And Russia is, I think, still playing a good role, as you can see, that they are supplying nuclear reactors to India. Good. Well, India has to really sit down and take a look, and the leaders in India, and particularly scientists at this organization, have to take a look. How long can the Indian population wait to get the energy so that their livelihood is improved, their health is improved, they have some happiness in their lives? Well, we have the slogans from Prime Minister saying, "Make in India," but where is the energy going to come from? Not from wind, not from solar. So I think one has to really think about it. What needs to be done to solve the current problem? So, as I said this morning, the answer seems to me, from me, I have no personal interest in Thorcon. I am not associated. I learned by attending some conferences, meetings. I thought they have a very good plan, as I explained. I think India can benefit from this, and the rest of the world can benefit from that if this could be implemented the way it is proposed in my earlier talk. I think you people have to really search your hearts what you have to do for the rest of the population that doesn't have the energy, that are living in poverty. How long are you going to make them live in poverty? Anyway, my talk is about ADS. I think I would like to give a brief history of what has happened. This is nothing new. In 1950, Dr. Lawrence in Canada proposed high-power accelerators for producing fissile materials. I think now one can do that if you put your mind to it. And Dr. Lewis in 1952 proposed use of thorium with intense neutron generator. That's what we are talking about. 1992, Charlie Bowman, who from Los Alamos, proposed an energy generation with accelerated transmutation of waste. Unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere. And we heard a lot about, that is based on thermal system. And you heard from Dr. Revol about Professor Rubia's plan on energy amplifier, and apparently they are making some progress now. So this is Charlie Bowman's neutron cost estimates, and this is where some of my work comes into play. So as you can see, in 1950s, the cost of neutrons per gram is 10 to the power of 12. With SNS, which is running in the United States, built early part of last decade, the cost came down. That is using a mercury target. And the GEMSTAR, which I'm going to explain a little bit more, which is Charlie Bowman's brainchild. And this is a project basically resides in Virginia, because Charlie Bowman is a Virginian. And Virginia Tech has a group of people trying to do all this. So if you do that is with uranium target. Here is mercury target. With GEMSTAR mass produced, this is what is expected. And this is based on what I call polycrystalline niobium superconducting radio frequency technology. So recently we made some enormous progress in trying to reduce the cost of these accelerator systems and improve their efficiency. With that, actually, we have dropped it by an order of magnitude already. So this is what GEMSTAR plan is. We are currently looking at using, for example, take here, India uses natural uranium, enrichment. Then you use the thermal reactors. There is no enrichment here, of course. And the reprocessing of the stuff coming out of the thermal reactors. And then take it to fast reactors and all that, and this is what is happening. The main problem seems to be people are concerned about this proliferation, which someone raised the issue. So GEMSTAR can actually address this situation. The main idea here is either you can use natural uranium or light water spent fuel or even plutonium. Take those, fluorinate them, so you're not doing any enrichment or no reprocessing, and add external neutrons for accelerators, and Dr. Revol has explained all that stuff. So basically, in doing this, you can extract more energy from the spent fuel, or you can burn the thorium that is sitting there. There is an agreement between US and Russia to burn that thorium, weapons thorium, but they have not done anything. There is no viable technology, but we have a solution here. This can be done. Well, this is what India's plan is, and I think the accelerator technology exists. If really one puts mind, manpower, this can be built, because SNS was built. It's a pulse, but you need a CW. This can be built in 5 years. But of course, it takes time here. And we heard about this. This is really not going anywhere. I put some effort in trying to get some of our labs interested in this, but we have no interest in the US. And this is another program in the US, and obviously the same reasons. There is no funding, so this is not going anywhere either. But in the history, I have forgotten to include this 1985 proposal from Professor Furukawa. This is advanced molten salt breeder. So this is also based again on a proton beam coming up and producing neutrons here and fast breeder, breeding from thorium. So all these ideas exist, but obviously people are not putting any effort into these things. There's no money. So I said we improved the superconducting radio frequency technology with what we call ingot niobium, which is basically, instead of taking polycrystalline niobium sheets, which are expensive to make, and also potential inclusions that may lead to problems, we have basically proven that this low-cost technology can give you very high quality factors. This is a recent project that is being built in the US, which is called LCLS2, using this technology. These are the specifications for the quality factor in order to reduce the power consumption at 2K, which is very expensive. So this is a 1.3 gigahertz system, but our cavities are 1.5. If you apply correction for the frequency, this is somewhere around 410 to the power of 10. And the existing, this is a CBAF upgrade, but actually it's maybe about 8 or 9. Yeah, this may be still correct. And this is a project that is being built in Germany, which is called XFEL. These are the specs for that. So our niobium, which is low cost, it's a factor of 4 less, and which will give you higher Qs, basically reduces the cost of this technology by a factor of 3 to 4, and the efficiency is an improvement of factor of 3 to 4. So that's what I'm talking about. The neutron production cost will go down by an order of magnitude if you implement this technology, which is already exists. And this is basically gives you statistics of this tests that were done. Basically what I'm saying is, if you take a low-cost triple niobium of 100, you will be able to apply to all the existing or future projects. And this shows the latest advances that my collaborator, CBMM, it's a Brazilian company, made. This is the world's largest ingot, about half a meter in diameter. That means you can make 650 megahertz cavities directly from ingots. And the purity of this niobium is pretty high. It's about 300 triple R. So that means the cost and efficiency have gone up with this new technology. Anyway, I have put all these advances in the SRF radio frequency technology in a volume. Only last night, actually, I completed editing this, which is at the printers, and that will come out on December 4th. We have a one-day workshop at Jefferson Lab, and this will be released on that day. So actually, for me to do all these things, I have a support of a large number of experts from the world, and they are listed on the top here. Actually, 2 of the senior colleagues from India are helping me in this by their moral support, basically. So this book will be released on December 4th on this technology. So here are the worldwide network of my collaborators who have contributed chapters. There are total about 16 chapters divided into 3 sections. I think there will be a website available later on. So my goal currently is I would like to apply this, develop a small R&D center, which we call it Virginia Nuclear Energy Frontier Research Center. We would like to build it adjacent to Jefferson Lab in Newport News, where a new tech park is coming up. It's a green site. This part of that is already just getting commissioned. They started building something around here, I think. Yeah, these are under construction. We would like to build something out there based on this technology, advanced technology, towards some of the things that we can do. One is we can generate medical isotopes. First thing we can do with this technology is with CW electrons, we can build a small electron LINAC, and it can be, the electron beam will go on to this whatever we call target that will produce the gammas, which they go in the forward direction, and you can do photonuclear production of medical isotope in this fashion, or you can also use neutrons that are coming out from here for high demand isotopes. So we have this very efficient technology available to build this. So I have at least one company interested in helping us building this facility at this center. And schematically, this is what is being shown. And we have this thermionic gun that will go into this. And a 100 MeV LINAC can be seen here. So we have actually these 3 websites that gives you an idea of what we have done since the inception of this consortium on ADS and thorium utilization, which I think started in 2008, 2009. And you can go and find the details of this. And in summary, what I like to say is closed fuel cycle reactors and ADS-THE systems require at least another 25 years for maturity. So if we want to address the current problem in a quick way, I think the molten salt reactors can be built now to provide carbon-free economic generation of heat and our electricity safely for the health and prosperity of the humanity, for the masses that require that. I think it's all upon us to make this happen in a short time so that we eliminate this air pollution, and I think we can improve the health of the communities very safely and economically.
Thank you very much, Professor. And we're going to open up the floor for any questions. Yes.
I see that one of the analyses that has been made for the reduction of the cost of the neutron production has been the assessment of the possibility of use of high purity niobium for the radio frequency cavity. But have you thought also, for example, possible use of high temperature superconductors for a new generation of magnets, a new generation of cyclotrons that could, for example, resolve the problem that is the main problem of LINACs, that is the reliability, because reliability is one of the showstopper in the deployment of this technology for IDS.
Yeah, basically, we do not need high purity niobium to get very efficient system. Actually, you want low purity niobium. So there's a physics behind it. I don't have time to go into it. Okay. The second thing is the reliability is based on the one-of-a-kind accelerators built currently. But the technology exists to make them very robust. But the basic research tools, that is SNS or the LINAC we have at JLab, they are not built with that in mind. But they can be built. Of course, if you ask I asked people from Texas A&M, whatever that cyclotron-based ADS they proposed, what about the cost? They have no idea. But we know what the costs of these systems are.
No, the point is that it should be put into should be put into the discussion the effect, the impact that could have this new technology for the deployment of this kind of technology. I mean, we are talking about PSI, the largest cyclotron that is at the moment in operation. This is a machine that has, correct me if I'm wrong, 40 years, or even 50 probably. And today it's possible to do superconducting magnets that are reliable, that are cost effective, that will be compact, and that can produce the 1 GeV beam, proton beam that you need for this sort of machine.
Sure,
and this will be incredibly cost effective. So I would include into your scouting of technology also this aspect that, in my opinion, should be absolutely included. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that people were concerned in the past, basically, you're talking about Marx-based reactor systems trying to put ADS part of it. There are issues with that. If you go with molten salt, all those issues are gone. Even if there are many trips, it doesn't really affect these systems.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, if not, we want to thank Professor Mayani again and for his very enlightening